If you could only supplement with one plant, what would it be?
Probably cannabis as a drug is that it makes a molecule that happens to resemble molecules that your own body makes and uses in different signaling processes. I mean, 95% of the world drinks caffeine on a daily basis. I think the future of hemp is probably not going to be with the fiber applications, although there's always creative, interesting ideas that people are putting forward with that. Iron is essential for mitochondrial function.
Now, how long have you been in a professional in the world of plants?
My start was non-professional. Professionally, I graduated in 2015 with a PhD from CU Boulder, the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology. I did some of my dissertation on plants, some of my dissertation on microbes, microbiome, and plant microbiome studies. So yeah, pretty much since about 2012, I've been working on plants in grad school, then professionally since then.
And where does the inspiration to commit so much time and energy, and where's that passion come from for this work?
Well, I think when I was, growing up, it was, I had, my father was a scientist, so he really instilled a sense of curiosity and, love of the natural world. And I grew up in a pretty rural area. So it was a small town in upstate New York, and it's kind of a blend of a small college town that is surrounded by farms and, the largest park in the United States, the Adirondack Park. So I was just always kind of immersed in the natural world. And I think just having those influences and making my way out here through other means, I eventually came back to it, and just has been always something that you feel inspired to work on, and it's something that's comfortable and I think also important too. So there's a lot of opportunities.
So your dad was a scientist. What was he focusing his efforts on?
Well, so he went through a long transition as well. I mean, he was a mathematician by training. He did his PhD at CU Boulder in the 1970s. So my parents met out here in the wild times of I guess it was the early and mid 1970s. Yeah, so he started with math and then evolved more towards computer science as his teaching and research career developed at the Clark's University, which was my hometown. And then towards the end of his career, he became more focused professionally on mathematical biology. So I think that was probably something he always wanted to work on, biology. Not necessarily plants, but just, ecology and modeling and just natural history. But, he took a long detour through mathematics and computer science. So, but by the end of his career, which, he's still working as a professor emeritus, but by the end of his career, he was fully working as a computational mathematical biologist.
What does he do with that kind of a work?
Well, he was a professor. He had one job as his whole working career after he finished his PhD. During his PhD, he worked, in some of the early wave of what we would now call tech startups, and worked at IBM and Storage Tech, which was a tape storage company. So he worked as a programmer primarily and paid his way through his PhD here. And then, got a faculty offer at Clarkson and just ended up working there for, over 30 years, which would be rare.
So you got some of the science PhD curiosity from your dad. Did you also get your maybe love interest for plants, nature from him as well? Or how did that come into the mix?
Well, my mom, I would say, gave me kind of the plant inspiration. So she was always a gardener, and there's pictures of me from before I can remember that I've seen playing in the, we didn't have a large property, but we had about a half acre just on the edge of the village. So we had some space to grow. And my mom filled it up with vegetables and flowers. And I think that was sort of the cultivation side. But the other thing I would point out is just, I don't know if you've, I'm not sure where you're from, but
Chicago.
Okay. Well, that can be a lush environment as well. The edges there in the summer around the Great Lakes there. we're on the other side of Lake Ontario. It's a little hillier there, but it's an incredibly just lush environment, forested, not quite a rainforest, but it's a very green, plant-rich, plant-diverse, natural ecosystem during the summer months at least. And I think just natural curiosity, being surrounded by probably more trees than humans growing up, just kind of led me to be curious about what they are, where they came from. And I just kind of never let that go. Playing in the woods as I got older and more independent became, some of my most cherished memories are, building forts in the woods and then eventually learning how to, pedal a bike. And I got into mountain biking. And that's eventually what led me out here. Initially was a love of, recreating in the forest as a mountain bike athlete. So, I've just always had a real connection that's driven by, I think, just a sense of connection and peacefulness when you are in an environment that is, not necessarily dominated, but at least balanced with a lot of plants.
Mm-hmm. And were you competing with mountain biking?
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the US to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the US in soil in a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1-week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the US without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
Yeah, I got really into it. I was always a bit athletically talented, but didn't really thrive in the team environment. I grew up playing hockey initially, and then switched to basketball and some other sports. But during high school, I kind of lost my way, as some people do, and then eventually found it, through biking and cross-country mountain bike racing and ski racing, which I started out there. And then, this is, of course, a huge mecca for outdoor sports, industry and athletes and training and everything. So that was really the initial draw to come out to Boulder.
Do you work with any athletes today?
No, I still consider myself an aging retired athlete, and I'm connected to, like at a personal level, to a lot of people that raced on the cross-country mountain bike scene in the 2000s, the early 2000s. I'm not actively involved in the industry at all, but I definitely ride, as many times a week as possible. So it's...
Where are you going? What's maybe your top 1, 2, 3 around Boulder?
Mountain bike trails?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well,
I mountain bike as well.
Oh, great. Okay.
I was never competing, but we had a lot of cross country trails through our forest preserves in Chicago, and just grew up climbing trees and mountain biking.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So the call of the trail then. Well, my favorite trails, it's hard to really pick. I'd say all time, at least in Boulder County, would be some of the routes up west of Nederland, up towards Caribou, west of the high school there's some good stuff as well. I tend to ride a little bit further north now because I live in Longmont, so Howell Ranch. There's some trails in the National Forest lands around Left Hand Canyon, so I do that. But, the best trail is the one you're on, I'd say.
And I was sharing with you that Aaron Brockett, who's the mayor of Boulder, was just in here, and I asked him about mountain bike thefts.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge deal.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah,
I've had my mountain bike stolen right off the back of my truck.
No way.
And then I said,
tragic.
Some people refer to Boulder as mountain bike theft capital of the country. He's
Really?
like, well, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I was like, well, there's, the papers reported that these gangs come up and they pay, people in need, maybe through drugs, or that's kind of how he was saying there's some type of a trade, like for whatever drugs they're on, heroin, meth, things like that. And they'll steal these bikes, chop them, cut them up, and then ship them back down south. And he's like, the Boulder actually has a special task force, or at one time they did, to try to break these gangs up.
For sure. Yeah, I've heard a bit about that, and I've certainly lost some townie bikes. I've been fortunate never to lose, a really nice rig or anything. So I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully you had insurance of some sort on it.
Well, luckily it was on my car. So the car insurance gave me something for it. So that was just a little bit, not all of it. But now I've got an air tag on it, and I've got the serial number, and I'm like, okay, I know but the police showed up pretty quickly. It was at my first commercial kitchen around right around here, like 30th and Walnut. There's some industrial parks just a little bit farther east of here, right along the train tracks. And some of the homeless will use those train tracks as like their kind of highway. That's the easy way for them to move around. And the police came and they're just like, yeah, that's gone. We'll never get that back.
They don't seem to try very hard.
They did not try at all.
They just, it doesn't seem to be a priority unless it's maybe a bike shop business or something. But it's frustrating. The racks, I don't know what kind of rack you had, but you have to be. It
was a Ghost. So it was like kind of like an REI. Not REI brand, but REI was only carrying it. Maybe brand new. It was about 2000. It was maybe a couple years old. But then my thief, he left his bike there in the bushes.
No way. He just traded out. What a dirtbag. That's unbelievable.
But he wanted to come back for it. So he was riding a road bike.
Okay.
And he saw my just cruising around looking for something to steal, as I assume. Saw my bike on the back of the truck, was able to cut the lock. I think he had like a car battery or something in his backpack, because it was a really good lock on my truck. And police came. They're like, nothing we could do. I'm like, okay, shoot. It then got dark. I turned the lights on in my car, and those lit up a bike that were in the bushes right along the train tracks. And I was like, what the heck? And so I grabbed that bike. Now I ride his bike. And that was my first road bike.
Wow. Okay. So it introduced you to something new, I guess we could say, as a positive. Huh?
So now I've got a road bike, which I love.
Was it a decent road bike?
Brand new is probably like over 10 years old, but brand new, maybe like $1,000. I'm more of like a medium size build. This is like a large, so it's a little big for me. But I've only ever ridden mountain bikes, and this thing just flies. It's like a Ferrari.
Yeah, it's fun. It is fun. Dangerous but fun. Wow. Well, I should ask. I mean, you did. Was it a stolen bike?
I never looked.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
it's probably too late.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. It probably was. I mean, seemed like his business.
Yeah, but a lot of time, like you said, you mentioned serial numbers. You always record those. A lot of people don't. And if you don't, then even if the police do have the opportunity or do recover a bike, if you don't have proof of the serial number, they won't. I believe a lot of times they just there's no way to establish ownership, despite even if you have a bunch of pictures of it or something, it's not really, they want the number. So, and
it's easy now to hide air tags in the bikes as well.
That's a great idea.
In the bell, I have one on my on my road bike. You could hide it in like the bell to let people know, and it's hidden. And there's no way to undo it without special tools. And then I have another one that's hidden in the seat, and just air tags are $25. So
nice.
I don't know how much that would help, or the police care about that. But
I think if you could locate it, it would be good. Probably help.
Okay. So mountain biking, skiing, those are two of your favorite kind of nature activities. I also moved out here for the nature, for the skiing. It was our family trip growing up, was to come out here and ski.
Oh yeah. Where'd you guys go?
We started at Vail, and that was before I even knew altitude was a thing. And I would just get crushed by the altitude. I had no idea what was going on, and I would just be so miserable. And then we switched to Keystone, a little bit lower elevation. And as I grew, I maybe just knew to drink more water. Keystone and Vail.
Still great places.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, I just went to Brack on Saturday. So.
Oh, how was that?
It was good. I love it. I mean, spring skiing, I would say underrated. So
I wrote it off. I have the
sleep in
Keystone Pass, so I can do Keystone and Breck right now. And it's nice to do Breck right now.
Well, I mean, it's open to a lot. Closing day is Sunday, I think. So,
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, for Breck. So
Okay, and we're at May 7th right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's plenty, snowpack is holding up. But yeah, they just people stopped going, I think. So they just, from a business standpoint, kind of shut it down. So
what's your favorite resort in Colorado?
Well, I mean, it's really hard to pick. I don't know, maybe the Aspen cluster, which is, several mountains that you can all go to. But Aspen Highlands, I mean, doing the hike, the Aspen Highland Bowl, if you haven't done that, I would say that's probably one of the best like inbounds areas you can ski in Colorado. I don't know. I just hiked Peak 6 at Breckenridge on Saturday, and it's a fantastic terrain up there too. Super steep, filled with winter-like snow at this point of the year, even some of the north-facing couloirs and stuff. So there's a lot of good skiing to be had. So much skiing, so little time. I mean, especially when you live down here, the travel. I just I'm not going every day.
I lived in Dillon before moving out here. So I was like 10 minutes from Keystone, and I skied over 60 days that year. When I was first starting my business, I was like a ski bum entrepreneur, and I was like, this is the best. This is the coolest life ever. This is and then and then you only get to and you ski Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday it's like Disney World. All of a sudden the town of Dillon is like 10, 20x what it is during the week. It's wild.
Yeah. So you moved down here to launch your business?
Yep.
Yeah, Boulder's the spot.
It was lonely up there too. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people move, what I realize is a lot of people move out into the mountains to kind of like escape, like maybe other people. It's very transient as well. It's a lot of second, third homes. I do a lot of farmers markets. My best market is Vail, and all the people that come and visit the market from Vail, like almost nobody lives there. It's all second, third homes coming from Florida, Texas, Mexico, a lot of people from South America, Mexico.
Yeah. The sense of community. I've wondered what what that would be like living up there. I mean, this time of year, you get a little glimpse into it. I was thinking about that this weekend. It's just not a lot of people wanting to drive up from the Front Range to ski because the weather's so nice down here. It's not a major, national, international travel. So, but you could see a lot of the locals, out on their bikes, trying to maybe even come down to the Front Range to get some warmth and stuff. And I was thinking about just, what it would be like, what kind of churn you would feel in a town like Breckenridge. But
I mean, that's a major tourist town. That's probably one of my favorite tourist towns, pretty close to Denver here. And it's a high turnover of residents, I think, or people just cruising through because there's a lot of seasonal work. Vail employs most of the people out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I started as a microgreens farm because trying to win the Vail account because Vail is importing everything.
The Vail Resort.
Vail Resort owns
okay.
Keystone, Breckenridge, owns tons of the mountains out there, and they own most of the 5-star restaurants. And that is who purchases the most fresh microgreens as like a garnish, like a beautiful piece of art. You're familiar with microgreens a little bit?
Yeah, a bit. I'm not super tuned into the industry side of it, but yeah.
So nutrient dense baby vegetables is 14 days old. They're like beautiful, vibrant, many different colors, intense, strong flavors. So Vail owns all the 5-star resorts out there. They own a lot of stuff. They own into, if anybody wants anything and on a Vail property, it's not just rent. I don't know what it's called, but it's like rent plus we own part of your business. Like Patagonia wants to have something in there. REI wants to have a Shell gas station, Starbucks, whoever. They're like, we're going to be like a franchise partner with you or something like that.
Interesting.
So they got a lot of money. And I thought coming from software sales, 10 years of software sales, selling at like a big deals, complex, competitive, thinking big ticket item, thinking like I'm the best microgreen salesman there's ever been. Went in got a 2-car garage and just started growing tons of microgreens.
Nice. Just with some lights.
Towers.
Yeah, some towers. Cool. Okay.
And I couldn't win the account. And so I went into farmers markets. Everyone's like, hey, we love these fresh microgreens. How do we get these back in? We're tourists from Florida, Texas. How do we get them back at home? Like, you got to find fresh there. I was like, okay, well, maybe if I dry them, then I could, and then started the first dried microgreens business.
Yeah, and then you started shipping.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, well, what can you say about? I started. I had a hemp-based CBD business. I started in. Well, the origins were 2016. We officially launched some direct-to-consumer products back in 2017, and that was. I didn't have much of a background in sales or marketing. I had a technical background, as I described. So I went through some of that. Trying to get, that was the initial dream, was like, we'll get our products on the shelves at, Whole Foods, Natural Grocer.
What was the product?
We had different types of CBD, we had tinctures, and we tried a lot of different things, topicals, capsules, lip balms.
So 2017, that's right after was it called the Farm Bill?
Yeah.
When it all, in 2016, it kind of became legal again?
Yeah, I think the first Farm Bill, so a Farm Bill is a general descriptor of this large agricultural bill that Congress is supposed to pass every, I think, 4 or 5 years. So the initial one that re-legalized hemp cultivation in the United States was in, I think, 2014, late 2014. So the first hemp cultivations, legally licensed for outdoor cultivation were issued in, I believe, 2015. So that was definitely, yeah. Before that, it had been the last, legal hemp harvests were towards the end of World War II, the 1940s. So there was a long gap there. Of course, there was a lot of, there's plenty of cannabis cultivation, but there was a long gap in, field commodity style hemp cultivation. So yeah, we were right there. I saw some of the first operations, planting seeds back in 2015 when I was still finishing up my PhD, and eventually, and just decided it seemed like a great opportunity. So
yeah, there was a real boom and bust with that industry.
Yep.
Yeah, at that moment, it was like, I wonder what it was going for. How did they measure it? By the pound of anyhow, I knew
the
that
biomass. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it was like $1,000 a pound at one point, and then it went down to, the market flooded and it went down to like $200 a pound.
So, yeah, less than that now. Yeah, I don't know what the absolute high water mark was, but it was in the hundreds of dollars per pound of dried, hemp biomass flour that you would use to extract CBD from. And
was freeze drying a part of any of that process?
Well, so not initially. We did some freeze drying, not with the raw plant material, but after a little bit of separation of the trichomes from the flower material, you can freeze dry that. So that never became a big part of our processing. But the choke point is going from, you have acreage of hundreds or thousands of plants, and each one is composed of, there's fibery stems, there's leaves, there's flowers, there might be seeds mixed in there. And so if you're going for CBD cannabidiol extract, you have to extract that from these different parts of the plant. The thing is, the different parts of the plant contain different levels of CBD. Some, the stalks and the fibers and the roots, it's effectively zero. The leaves can be, upwards of maybe like 1 or 2% by dry weight. And then flowers can be anywhere from 1 to 2% all the way up to like 25% dry weight. So you have to go from, a large plant in mass and be able to separate the different parts. And there just wasn't really a lot of equipment for that at the time in 2016, 2017, even up through, now there's some, there's some equipment that's been developed, but at first, nobody knew what to do. And the prices were so high, so people would plant stuff and they didn't have contracts to sell it. And then they would get towards the end of the growing season and the plant is frost intolerant. So we get these hard frosts in the Front Range sometime around late September, early October. And if you don't have your hemp plants, inside and protected and harvest, it can be a total loss. So people would get towards the end of the season and be like, oh, what do we do? It was a complete, gold rush in some ways, not really thinking things through for a lot of cultivators.
And then you'd have to test the hemp plants for THC because there was a almost arbitrary limit of, I believe, 0.03%. And if
Yeah.
it goes over that, they call it going hot. And then you basically have to burn your crop.
Yeah. It sounds like you've had some experience or read up on it, but yeah, that's the legal distinction in the United States and most countries now is the level of THC. So if it's above 0.3% dry weight THC, statutorily in the US, that's called marijuana. If it's below 0.3, it's called hemp. So, the plants, there are many different varieties within the species cannabis, and there's a lot of overlap. If you can't tell them apart by sight, there are some, plants that will be legally below that 0.3% level of THC, but they'll look pretty similar to a marijuana plant. So yeah, you do have to test it. And that leads to a lot of risk on the cultivator side as well, since the tests don't really tell you whether it's hot or not until the end of the season. So yet another risk and gamble you have to take in agriculture. But
what was your inspiration to get into that field?
Well, I was I started in grad school. I was studying. I generally targeted in grad school. My main interest was a little bit outside of plants. I was mostly interested in DNA sequencing technology. And at first I was applying it to bacteria and fungi that lived like in your gut, sometimes called the microbiome collectively, or also in soils. So soils have this assemblage of millions of different species of bacteria and fungi. So I was using DNA sequencing technology to identify and study the types of microorganisms that lived in your skin, your gut, and the soil. And I eventually realized that I just wanted to get more into plants. I started doing plants. So plants have their microbiome as well. Their roots are integrated with the soil, and they're interacting with the soil in a very directed way. They release, famously they take up water from the soil. Everybody knows about that, and of course also nutrients, which are mainly metal ions, but plants also release carbon. They essentially take some of the energy that they harvest from the sun and the atmosphere, and they actually put that into the soil in order to encourage microbial activity. So there's this very complex symbiosis between plants and microbes and the soil. I realized that that field is really, I would say, decades away from having enough basic science understanding to really be able to develop applications for agriculture and health. And there are, of course, people and companies developing applications based on microbiome. But my sense was now is a better time, given the types of DNA sequencing technology that are available, to work on the primary genome inside of the plant, all the genes that the plant have. So I made a switch, and it happened to be 2014, and cannabis was that farm bill that we talked about had just passed, and there was a lot of excitement about being able to study a plant that everybody knew about with a sort of cultural sort of, I guess if we could call it baggage or charisma that the plant has. It's, some people love it, some people hate it. But at the university, we just, my PhD advisor and our lab and myself were just, we were just over the moon having the opportunity to kind of dig into a plant species that's so, woven into human history, but yet we really don't know that much about. So it was really, chasing that mystery and excitement, I think, during grad school.
Tell maybe for those, because so much education is needed around hemp. I think even still today, there's a lot of misinformation. There was, 80 years of propaganda around, and prohibition. So we lost the farmers, we lost the how to grow it, like what it's good for. Can you give us a little background on the hemp plant? And I have a little bit of a background too, because I did bring a CBD product to market. I had a microgreens tea. That's how I started. I put microgreens into tea. Everyone likes tea. And they're like, just a little bit of extra nutrients in your tea, like a turmeric or a black tea.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And then I infuse CBD into that as well. That was one of the first CBD teas. But then I was like, I'm educating on microgreens and CBD. It's like, this is way too much. And then operationally, it was a nightmare because I couldn't I couldn't get insurance, banking, payment processing, on and on. And I couldn't run ads, like the whole thing. Like everyone's like, nope, we will not work with you. And if we do, it's going to be like way more than a normal business.
Yeah. So you know a lot about the just the challenges working with the plant. What year was that? Can I ask?
Yeah, that was maybe 2019, maybe 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was things were humming then, but yeah, it was all this uncertainty still around.
It was a vapor distilled, locally done, vapor distilled, full spectrum, and turned into a powder that was kind of sticky.
Yep.
And then I would just put in this big tumble kind of cement mixer, actually, the tea and the CBD powder, weigh it all out, and then the CBD would just stick to the leaves, and then it was water soluble. So as soon as people put it into their drink, they would be able to get all of it.
Yeah, that's a good deal. So it's like a hot water tea kind of concept. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, the emulsified, the drinks are still, I mean, I think that's a really good category for it. You know.
It was a loose leaf tea.
Yeah. Yeah. How did it taste? How was the reception?
It was good. I mean, you could smell the hemp, and to me, it smells great. So to me, it was good. A lot of people were concerned because I was doing farmers markets with it, and people were concerned about losing their jobs but then my two best sellers was a turmeric lemon ginger, so for pain, inflammation, arthritis, with the CBD, and then a chamomile blend, like a sleepy time one. And there's synergistic benefits with those herbs and CBD, and they magnify the sleep or kind of pain support.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds like a good blend. Yeah, I'll just start at a personal level. I mean, I'll take some CBD mainly for sleep, and recovery from exercise and stuff.
How do you take it? Do you tincture, capsule?
So I go really simple now. I just infuse a coconut oil. So
you're making yourself, like from flower to...
Yeah, really two ingredients. Yeah, I grow the plants and then dry it out. So you have dried flour, and then just in the oven, I just heat up some coconut oil, liquefy it, mix it together. It's pretty low temperature, about 220-ish. So
because it needs to hit a certain temperature to, what's it called?
Decarboxylate, right.
And what's happening there?
Yeah, so it's becoming more bioactive. There's a carboxyl group on the cannabidiol molecule. So the plant produces a molecule called cannabidolic acid, so CBDA, and that is either not bioactive or not very bioactive. So generally, most people believe that the CBD form without the carboxyl group is more bioactive. So that's why smoking marijuana works. The heat from the combustion process decarboxylates the THC. THC and CBD are actually very similar molecules. They're isomers, meaning they have the same number of carbons and oxygens and hydrogens. They're just arranged in a slightly different configuration. So very different effects. Small changes in molecular structure can have, drastically different outcomes for, human health and pharmacology.
One, THC being quite psychoactive, make you feel high. And if people haven't felt high before, maybe it's like kind of not like quite like drunk, but you're like altered, where CBD almost no kind of effect in that way. More of maybe a body high, more of like if I have pain in my knee, it will kind of just like dissipate and tingle away. I'll feel myself calm. And there's many different strains within all of this as well. Do you find that can be a large difference in types of effects from one plant to another?
Yeah, that's what most people believe. There's very strong, user preference for different varieties. And the science behind that's a little less clear. It's very difficult to study all the combinations of molecules and aromas that can be present in different plants. But yeah, humans certainly seem to have a very refined ability to sense plant molecules, through their taste and smell. And cannabis is a plant that produces a really diverse, I guess I would call it, bouquet across, all of the different genetic types. And, there's plants that smell like lemons. There's ones that smell like orange or mushrooms or wood or gasoline. And, there's some similarities to like with fermented products. I'd say it's probably most similar to wine. If people aren't familiar with cannabis, there's grape varietals. And of course, there's a lot of, effects of the aging and fermentation process in wines, which don't exactly equate to cannabis. But certainly people have their favorite wines just as they have their favorite cannabis.
And who do you say CBD is best for?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I don't really have a perfect answer for that. Cannabinoids are interesting in that they are very widely acting across many different human physiological systems. And so that is both a good thing and a bad thing. So the reason for that is that our body has molecular receptors naturally that cannabinoid molecules interact with. But they're not just limited to they're in your brain and your spinal cord. And
this is the endocannabinoid system?
Yes, exactly. So the reason cannabis is a drug is that it makes a molecule that happens to resemble molecules that your own body makes and uses in different signaling processes. So the good thing and the bad thing about it is that cannabis affects a lot of your different body systems that have endocannabinoid receptors. So obviously psychology, anything related to your nervous system, but also your immune system as well. So it makes it so that there are a lot of different effects of both CBD and THC, but it's also not very targeted. So so you mentioned, it relaxes you and it relieves pain. So the studies in humans and also mice models have shown a fairly consistent effect at reducing pain and inflammation with CBD. So there's a good target audience there. In humans, in the US and the European Union, I mean, the CBD has been approved for neurological issues right now, mainly for spasticity related to multiple sclerosis and epilepsy. So my general advice on CBD is to start with a low dose. If you have issues with anxiety, pain, inflammation, and sleep, and sometimes those all kind of go together, right? Mm-hmm. If you have anxiety, you don't sleep as well. If you don't sleep as well, your body doesn't physically recover. You may have some inflammation. If you have inflammation, you may have some pain. So if you have some ailments in that sort of area, I would recommend trying potentially a low dose. And you can get a prescription from your doctor, but it's much cheaper to source, I would say, locally minimally processed hemp-derived CBD. And
what's your favorite extraction method? I mean, I'm hearing what you do at home, but if you were to buy it at the store.
Oh yeah, my favorite extraction technique. Well, if you can find it, lipid extracted tinctures are really good. And
what does that mean?
So it's basically what I described what I do at home. Oh. So there's very few steps. You basically it's like making a tea, except without water. You're using an oil base. I like coconut. That's probably not, coconut oil solidifies below whatever, at most room temperatures in the winter. So that probably usually isn't what people are going to sell on the shelves. But yeah, olive oil, whatever, grapeseed oil. But that said, also the other full spectrum extraction methods are good. The supercritical CO2 is also a good method.
What about the vapor distilled? That would seem like so
that's a really good one. Yeah, that's a good one. I forgot about that. Yeah, so that's a really good method that can be scaled up industrially. So yeah, I saw some really big operations that had made basically just these giant. I mean, it looked like what you would see at the Coors distillery or something, and they overscaled though, as kind of. So they're gone now. But yeah, vapor distillation is a great way. It's there's no hydrocarbon solvents, and there's a lot you can do with it. So
what's something you could tell people about hemp that they might be surprised, either from its history or the propaganda around it, or just the state of it in the US versus other countries?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of things people might not know, I think, related to, so we've talked a lot about CBD, which was kind of the main commercial value proposition, I think, since, this revitalization since 2014. Traditionally, hemp meant two things: fiber and also nutritional oils from the seeds. So those markets people know less about because, well, they're struggling. We'll put it that way. There's fewer than 100,000 acres of hemp planted in the US in current years, like 2024, 2025 seasons. And, part of the reason for that is that, well, I would blame on the fiber side, hemp had its heyday. It had several waves through history. Its last heyday predated the adoption of synthetic fibers for ropes and for ships. So during the age of sail ships, hemp was still one of the best, highest quality fibers they would use for the rigging. And eventually, petroleum-based nylon and other synthetic polymers largely replaced it. It never really was a major source of paper. Earlier in history, before the 1600s, it would have had fairly widespread use in textiles, but cotton and flax eventually kind of replaced it. So, looking forward, I think the future of hemp is probably not going to be with the fiber applications, although, there's always creative and interesting ideas that people are putting forward with that. But there's just so much competition from other fiber type plants, but B, also, unfortunately, plastics and synthetics. So in my recent work as a researcher, I have come to believe that hemp has a lot of nutritional untapped potential in terms of its ability to produce polyunsaturated fatty acids of different chain lengths. So
is that like omegas?
Yeah, so omegas would be an example, but with hemp, it can be different chain lengths. So it can be a really diverse blend, and we can breed it and develop it to make different types of oils. And that market is already there. You can go to, specialty grocers, natural grocer, and go to the refrigerated aisle, and, you can find hemp seed oil, which is not the same as hemp CBD oil. It's oil that's pressed from the seeds and, can be used as a salad dressing, or you can cook with it. It's a pretty strong flavor though. So it's, on par with flaxseed oil if you take that for, cardiovascular health. Mm-hmm. Not usually going to be your main cooking ingredient. Doesn't have the flavor profile of olive oil or something bland like the seed oils, but some people like it. And I think that looking at the genetic stock around the world, we just published a study on this, that there's actually a lot of untapped potential to make, different combinations of seed oil that will have different properties. Hopefully it'll taste a little better, and we might be able to improve the shelf life so that it doesn't have to be refrigerated as well. So it's an area of research. I've discovered these genes, and we don't know exactly what we're going to be able to do with them, but that's the first step. So
these hemp oils would offer a lot more nutritional benefits potentially and a longer shelf life.
Yeah, the idea from, a scientific and sort of product development concept is that, okay, what can we do? What can we harness hemp for that isn't being occupied by the other, oils on the market? So flaxseed oil is already kind of doing its thing. I'll put flaxseed in my oatmeal and, try to improve my cholesterol a few points or whatever, but it's just not a huge, flax is planted on the scale of under, I think it's about 120,000 acres in the US. It's a very minor crop. So, olive oil is delicious and of course, well studied in terms of,
You want to just take a little pause break here?
Yeah, we can do that.
So you were talking about hemp seed oil. Now, cooking oils have got, there's quite a few issues with cooking oils today. Vegetable seed oils, they are inflammatory. A lot of them are, how they're made, I'm not quite educated on. I just know that they're not really good for you. I cook with coconut oil, sometimes avocado, butter, ghee, olive oil. That's what I cook with. And then when I go to a restaurant, which sometimes it's not always able to do, but I just say I have an allergy to seed and vegetable oils.
Okay, nice.
And to not cook with those things, just cook in butter. And sometimes they're like, you're just getting steamed broccoli. That's all we got for you. Because everything's already cooked back there. It's like, oh, geez. But that's where I feel the worst. I'm like, I love going to restaurants, but I'm like, it's all cooked in seed and vegetable oils.
For sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Restaurant food is, I don't know. I find it delicious, but also not, it doesn't usually make me feel that great the next day.
Yep.
And I mean, aside from the oil, it just seems like the intensity of the flavor, a lot of it's derived from, it's just salty and heavy. And, but I do love going out in Boulder. And
what's your spot in Boulder?
Well, it used to be the Med. I loved that place.
Mm-hmm.
The
big restaurant.
The happy hour. Yeah. And that was so long, that they finished that. That was there like 20 years almost. So the owners shut it down during the pandemic, I think, to kind of retire. So I don't know. We went to Centro on
right on Pearl Street.
Yeah, last weekend, and that's been there forever. But
right next to Bar Taco.
Still delicious. Yeah. Yeah. Sushi spot. I mean, can't go wrong with Hapa or any of the better places. I've always kind of been partial to Hapa, but so
I haven't been in their new location. That's now seems like it's
a little nicer. Same menu and vibe though. Yeah, a bit bigger. Yeah, yep.
So if you're going out on Pearl Street, where are you going? So I'm hearing those restaurants. Is there any other spots that you like to go?
Yeah, I like the food hall, the Rosetta Stone. Is that what it is? Yeah, Rosetta Hall. Yeah, that's kind of a nice vibe.
Which is more like what would you call like a food court? It's a bunch of different restaurants all under one roof from different areas of the world.
Yeah, and they're pretty good. I mean, it's there's different.
It's a cool scene.
Levels of food hall, and that one is nice. I kind of like it.
Great rooftop.
Yeah.
Do you ever go to the Boulder Bookstore?
Yeah, bookstore. I love Trident. That's a good spot. I'll go down there and work sometimes.
Do you happen to know Peter of?
I saw his interview on here, so I didn't know him, but I've seen him, so I learned a lot. Yeah, I mean, that place has been there. One of my first jobs was painting the outside of that building for the original owner of it. So. But yeah, it was different owners back then. That place has been there forever, but they just do such a, I don't know, it's such a good vibe. Coffee's on point. Everything's really, I also a big tea drinker, so there's some really good teas.
Yeah, the way that he sources, he explained that on the podcast. I mean, he's sourcing from like single origin, small family farms. He knows exactly. He's visited some of these farms. It's first class. He also has his own coffee company now as well that support many different indigenous kind of efforts and tribes. And
I'd love to learn more about coffee for sure. Yeah, it's something 95% of the world drinks caffeine on a daily basis. 95% of adults. So that's not all coffee, but
one product opportunity that came up during my conversation with him was the fruit from the coffee.
Yeah.
So it's like
the cherry.
The cherry. Like, what are you doing with that? And they're like, we're mostly just composting. But he's like, there's tons of good things in it. It's like, how do you turn that into something?
Yeah, I visited a coffee called a finca or a plant. It's sort of a production farm in Panama, and they had samples. They were trying to develop or market. I forget what they called it, but yeah, it was a tea made out of the cherry. It was much more like, it was a very light color. It looked like a oolong tea. Or something, the very, very subtle flavor.
Or even like because I'm in freeze drying. We freeze dry all these microgreens. So I'm like, what if we process it in a way that increase the good things in it if needed, or just left it raw, freeze dried it, powdered it, put in capsules.
I was just going to say powder. Yeah, it'd be a great powder for sure. I've never seen that. People were selling green coffee extract for a while. I don't know what happened to that, but
I do a green tea extract capsule.
That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. There's some decent science behind that. So,
what's your supplement stack look like?
Well, I kind of go through cycles of really getting into it, and I keep adding stuff. And then I'm like, no, this doesn't work. And I just get rid of it. So right now it's not much. It's just a multi, do some fish oil and a little bit of zinc, a little bit of creatine and protein. And that's about it. But I've tried I've tried other, usually gravitate towards like plants, whole plant extracts, ginseng, energy stuff. Rhodiola is a good one. It's hard to say, really the efficacy, but rhodiola tastes delicious. And I don't know. I don't
know much about it.
Yeah, it's
fun to say. Rhodiola?
Rhodiola, yeah. It's I don't know a whole lot about it, but yeah, it's a wild plant. And, you have to think about the way these plants are sourced and harvested too. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of transparency. But that's it's a plant that, there's some evidence it's like people market it as an adaptogen, so improves endurance and overall energy.
The way I understand adaptogens is they will move with the body whatever direction it needs to go. If it needs to up regulate, it'll bring you up. If it needs to down regulate, it'll help bring it down.
Yeah, it's an interesting definition. I'm not sure if that's I've never heard it put that way, but I like it. Yeah, I mean, if you think about the word adapt, it's to, I guess sort of change your approach or how your body's functioning in order to fit a new set of circumstances or an environment. So, I think of it, I guess, kind of ability to withstand, be resilient, withstand stress and workload. But sometimes the better adaptation is to just downregulate too and not take on more stuff. So
if you could only supplement with one plant, what would it be?
Probably Korean ginseng.
Did you say creatine?
No, Korean ginseng.
Oh, Korean ginseng.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do a ginseng tea from Wisconsin.
Yeah, American ginseng. Yeah, so that's a different species, but related. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ginseng. What is it? It's energizing for me. What else does it make? Maybe is there any type of what would you call it, nootropic type effect where is there clarity? Sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit sharper on it. Could you describe some of the benefits
Yeah, I would say it's just, it's kind of what you're saying. It's just a little bit of extra energy. I mean, it's not like drinking a double espresso. I'm very caffeine sensitive, so it's not like, it's not nothing like that, but it's just a few extra percentages of, I don't know. I just call it energy. I don't know how other people experience that, but when you don't feel an abundance of energy, I mean, it just makes everything more difficult. And so, yeah, if you're tired, even if there's no pain or whatever, it's like, it leads to this. For me, I think it, you feel it in your body and then it lowers my confidence. Mm-hmm. And so when I have that energy, it's the opposite. I'm like, I can tackle this next thing. So yeah, I think there's, I don't really know too much about the science of energy, but I think that's a really interesting topic. And, it's all related to metabolism, of course. And I'm not sure if there are good, like biochemical markers for energy, although I have noticed a little bit of attention towards mitochondrial health. So mitochondria are, notoriously the powerhouses of the cell. So there may be that those are a limiting factor or something that declines with aging. And it's certainly a new area of inquiry. And I think that hopefully, medicine and science will, sort of start shifting more towards just health. And, I don't want to use the word optimization, but just feeling better, having more energy, getting beyond just the concept of, well, we need to feel a baseline of not terrible or sick.
Yeah. I focus on just putting more good things in and finding that those bad things like processed foods will just eliminate themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's right. You can look at it like, there's a lot of studies that have been getting, press recently in the epidemiological literature with, ultra processed foods, which is a pretty big category. And of course, this is epidemiology. So we're talking about large populations of people self-reporting what they're eating and then tracking their health outcomes. So notoriously filled with statistical challenges. But certainly there does seem to be a strong association with, these ultra-processed foods and a variety of bad health outcomes down the road. So yeah, if you can squeeze those out, avoid the middle of the grocery store. Some people say, go to the edges, get the less processed stuff, just, raw ingredients, meat, vegetables, fruits, grains, if you can handle it, cook that stuff up. Don't send it to a factory as much as possible. Seems like you're going to be in decent shape.
That's pretty much what I do. Whole foods, mostly plants. When I eat meat, I get it from Golden Hoof here in town. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah, I haven't been, but yeah. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, good stuff.
I used to get all my meat from Costco, and that's like great. It seems really good. It's cheap, and you get a lot of it. And it's like, hey, you can get organic options. Seems good. But man, I don't know what the price difference is. Maybe it's twice as much at Golden Hoof, and it might be 10 times better.
Yeah, I think meat's something not to skimp on for sure.
I think it's the number one thing and then Costco is very good for organic vegetables and fruits, and they're the largest purchaser of all those in the country. They get first pick. It's, you get organic. It's great and much longer shelf life. So I get produce and other foods there, but my meat, Golden Hoof. And then a thing I've been really on is taking little shots of raw liver. Do you ever do that?
Okay, no, but my partner who's pregnant has been on the liver program for the iron. So
talk energy. That's like, there's no, I take a ton of supplements every day. There's no supplement that I even feel.
Interesting.
Except for a raw liver shot. Huh. You buy a thing of vacuum sealed liver frozen, you defrost it, chop it up into little cubes small enough that you could, swallow it like as if it was a handful of capsules. Chase it with some water. So chop them all up, put them into a glass Tupperware with parchment paper. This is my best thought of it, but I think a better way is to put it into like little silicone molds so you can just pop them out easy. But anyhow, you take it out of the freeze all of those cubes, take a couple cubes out of the freezer, takes maybe an hour to defrost, and then boom, like just as soon as you can, shoot it. And it's like the energy is maybe because I've been so deficient for a while. I'm only maybe like a month into doing this, but I feel it. I'm like, that's the best supplement I'm taking.
It's interesting. Have you had your blood work done or your iron or anything?
Yeah. Not since doing this, but I could feel the energy. The only other thing that I could feel is when I juice microgreens. That's like lightning to my blood. It's like, I'm like, whoa. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Concentrated foods. Well, I'll say with liver, also back to mitochondria. So iron, of course, famously helps transport oxygen through your blood system, major part of your metabolism. But also iron is essential for mitochondrial function, which is kind of the last step of all the biochemistry that leads to turning the stuff that we eat into actually energy and, transferring those the carbons to the oxygen. So.
So you said your partner is pregnant right now. What type of diet is she focused on with that?
Well, pretty much trying to get in as many calories as possible. So, she's in her third trimester now. So it's a big building process. This guy's probably, 3 pounds at this point, and he's going to have to be about 8 pounds before he comes out. So. Yeah, you have to hit all the you have to get the protein and the good fats and stuff. But yeah, you need some carbs, I think, too. So she needs a lot of energy. But certainly, when the blood work showed her iron was a little deficient. So she's been preparing liver. She's been taking liver, eating it, I guess, daily. Not quite the way you described it, but she buys it from a dairy or a local farm and chops it up. So
I've been doing cow and venison. My grandma, my dad's dad, who's 92, I believe, she is having some liver deficiency things as well. So I was like, all right, show me the capsules. Tell me what capsules you're taking. And they are all synthetic. Yeah. She's taking 3 different synthetic iron capsules. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, my understanding, iron has low bioavailability. So if you take a multivitamin that says, 100% of your daily recommended value of iron, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get into your body. And there's some variation, I think, with your genetics and also your microbiome and the other foods you combine it with. So yeah, people become iron deficient even if they're ingesting, quite a bit of iron. So that's kind of... Yeah, my understanding is, you want to try to get a broad spectrum of different iron. So, I cook with, I know you can get some, significant, maybe not your complete amount that you need from cooking in like cast iron.
Oh, really?
Pans. Yeah, that gives you significant iron in your diet. So I always do that. Some veggies have some as well. But liver, probably some of the best bioavailability from what I've heard. So
a friend of mine has a freeze-dried liver company, and I sent her a bunch of that as I just start ripping these.
Yeah, is she selling that for humans, or is this a pet thing? Or
for humans.
For humans,
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Wow. Freeze-dried liver. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of it, and I helped to do the initial R&D with it. Tribe Vitamins, they're local here in Boulder. Shout out Tribe Vitamins, and I did the initial R&D. I have all these freeze dryers.
Yeah.
I don't use them anymore. I'm looking for my next project and what to use all these freeze dryers for, but I've now since outsourced all the growing, the freeze drying, the whole piece of it, which is great. It gives me more time to do these marketing and this kind of type of work. Let's see. Does hemp find its way into your guys' home?
Well, not yet. Not when you're pregnant. I mean, just into my
even as
side,
seeds,
but
hemp seeds to eat.
No, we're not. Yeah, we're not a whole lot. We should, but there's not a whole lot of hemp seed availability. So
That's like U.S. grown.
Yeah, U.S. grown. A lot of it's Canadian. So
and I think it's been like sterilized, so you can never try to grow it. But I another Costco, sponsored by Costco here. I get just hemp seeds from Costco.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, they got tons of them. I just try to put them on.
That out.
I try to put them on everything. Not very expensive.
So they're like hulled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or no, de-hulled.
De-hulled. Yeah. De-hulled, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But you can get hulled. You can get U.S. grown ones. Most people are growing. My understanding is most people are growing hemp for CBD. You can grow it for the like industrial hemp for fiber, which we don't really have the infrastructure for. You were kind of sharing. We don't have those like decorticators to break it all up and to make it usable. You can grow it for seed, which you can then turn into an oil, or you can eat the seed, and then you can grow it for CBD. But there's very few options to kind of do all three of those within one plant. You got to kind of pick your crop. It's one of those three. Is that right?
This podcast is brought to you by B Micro, organic freeze-dried microgreens for easy, natural nutrition. Sprinkle them on any meal and enjoy the benefits. Shop now at bmicro.farm and use code STEVE15 to save.
Yeah, I think that, there are examples. There are some cultivars, the types of plants that are planted for like dual uses. So it's not too much of a stretch to harvest the flowers and the fiber separately.
Okay.
On the same plants. Now, you're usually not going to be using all three because to optimize your CBD yield, you're not going to be fertilizing the plant. So you're not going to have any seeds. So there's a trade-off. So usually you're going to be doing seeds or CBD, not both in the same plant. So there's different types of plants that have been bred specially for those uses. And then there's also differences in the way that you would plant and harvest them.
Yeah, so I try to eat CBD, I do try to take CBD frequently, but I try to do it once, maybe every 3 or 4 days, so that I never build like any tolerance to it.
Yep.
And so it's always just like, it just feels good, works. I don't need to take like more and more.
Yeah, that's a good general rule of thumb. Trying to find the minimum effective dose for any kind of drug, especially because, a lot of times with sleep and inflammation, these things are going to come up again. So it's not like something you're just going to need once. And the way your body works, it usually develops less of a response. So through time. So you have to typically use more, and a reset's a great way to do that. So
now, how long have you been working with the hemp plant?
Well, we grew the first plants when I was in grad school. I think it was late 2014, just after the Farm Bill had passed. So that was really the first license I think we had. Yeah, was 2014. So I guess over 11 years now.
And how long do you think humans have been working with the hemp plant?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, we've dug into that a bit through the archaeological literature, and It's not, it's hard to prove when humans first started using something. And there's a difference between using a plant and then domesticating it and intentionally planting it. So some plants are, wild harvested, and some are obviously planted in a big monoculture. But there's also a lot of gray area in between. And so in deep history, there was probably a gradient. But there is in Korea and Japan, there is evidence for use of hemp seeds and hemp fibers dating back almost 8,000 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was under the impression that maybe India was first to the scene on that. Might just be misremembering.
Well, so you're probably remembering, so there's, some of the first evidence for drug use of cannabis comes from India. So first use of, fiber, and that's been found in pottery. It basically, woven it like sort of like tied around shards of ancient pottery. Dates back much earlier. The plant was probably native to a region somewhere, north of Tibet, although it's not totally clear. And yeah, it was probably first used for either fiber or a food source. But we don't really know, back that far. Evidence for drug consumption may or may not really have persisted in the archaeological record. I mean, they might have been eating the seeds and the flowers and getting a little CBD, getting a little THC, also getting some nutrition. So it may have all kind of been happening at once. But at least in the scientific literature, yeah, basically Korea, Japan, Eastern China, way back, 8,000 plus years ago.
Is that one of the oldest relationships that we have with a plant?
Yeah, well, it depends on how you define relationships. I mean, humans have been, so Homo sapiens, anatomically modern humans, have been around for, I believe it's around 200,000 years or so. And so if you use that definition, I mean, people were eating plants, but they weren't domesticating plants. They weren't tilling fields. They weren't conducting agriculture as we think of it now. The dawn of agriculture would have followed the end of the Pleistocene, the recession of the ice sheets, probably around, 9 or 10,000 years ago, maybe a little bit earlier. Wheat, some of the cereal grains were probably, there's evidence for those being some of the earliest domesticated plants. But yeah, cannabis is right there.
Why do you think we have this endocannabinoid system in us?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, that's a really deep question. I can say that it's ancient. I mean, the easiest way to answer that is that because our ancestors did. So all humans have an endocannabinoid system, as do all other animals, all mammals. And in fact,
really?
Yeah. So it's a very evolutionarily ancient system. It predates humans, it predates mammals. And so, yeah, insects as well. So, yeah, so that's probably another way to look at it would be, why do cannabis plants make cannabinoids that happen to affect our brain and bodies? And I think the answer to that is because we share a lot of evolutionary systems with our ancient ancestors, like insects. And plants and insects are always in this arms race, this battle, this dance. They're trying to fight each other. Plants also need insects to do certain things. So a lot of compounds that happen to work in the human brain and body evolved over a much longer time scale to affect the way that insects interact with plants, either repel them so they don't munch the plant, or maybe attract them so that they either fight off other insects that are trying to munch them or perhaps pollinate them.
Now, there is it's kind of a popular online thing, almost vilifying vegetables right now. And since I'm
really
well, because the people that have like carnivore products and are promoting like jerky, they've got like a jerky company.
Oh, are these the meat influencers? The meat influencers?
Yes, exactly. And they will say things, because I do broccoli, radish, red cabbage, cruciferous ones, and specifically they'll say that those have the words escaping me, but these plants can't defend themselves. So they can't run away. They can't fight. So they have these molecules that will deter animals and that is inflammatory to us. I'm forgetting what the word is.
Secondary metabolites or anti-herbivory or...
Those are new words to me, but...
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of terms for these concepts. I mean, that's what I was describing a little bit with cannabinoids.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm not, a nutritionist, but I mean, I think that's, look, we have molars. I mean, I don't think humans have evolved to be pure carnivores. I think there's a lot of evidence for that. So I don't know, if some people are feeling good on a specific diet, I mean, that is an interesting thing. Just at a personal level, experimenting with your diet, you can get different responses. But yeah, it just sounds like they don't, they're just sort of trying to drum up some business. I mean, people have been eating plants for, well before recorded history. And yeah, I mean, nutritional epidemiology is fraught with a lot of, what are called confounds in the statistics. We mentioned that earlier, where you just have these big populations. I mean, the way these studies are often conducted, whether it's, hey, are eggs good or bad for you? Is coffee good or bad for you? And we all know, like, yeah, okay, there's going to be, in the next 5 years, there's going to be some articles that say yes and some that say no. Is, famously, wine, how is that good for your cardiovascular health? Yes or no? Well, these studies, the math and the statistics behind them and the way that they collect the data, they lend themselves towards ambiguity. So there is some issue there. But certainly from everything I've read, the Mediterranean diet, which is plant-rich, rich in olive oil, beans, legumes, some lean meats. I mean, it's strongly associated across a number of studies with improvements in cardiovascular health and risk for mortality. So I don't think my guess is nobody has done a long-term, very well-controlled study on an all carnivore diet. I haven't looked, but I'm just guessing. That's a pretty extreme diet. So
yeah, I think interesting. As I was preparing for this, I might not have all the terminology exactly right, but our human genes are 99.8% all the same. So there's like a 0.2%, or is it DNA, or is it genetics? I don't know which word.
Yeah, you mean between all the different humans? Yeah. Yeah, humans are one species. So the Homo sapiens, there's no, there's a lot of diversity, what we call phenotype, which are our traits, the way we look. Humans are diverse in a lot of ways, very tall, very short, all kinds of different structures, but we can all, reproduce. We're all interfertile. So humans are really just one species, and we're all cousins, really, So that doesn't mean, when people cite those numbers, so the human genome is, over 3 billion base pairs long. So there's a lot of information in there. And so, the most distantly related two humans still share over 99% of all that information. So little differences in your genes and your genetics can have large effects on your phenotype. So that's kind of one of the mysteries of biology, is that connection between the genetic code and the final physical traits.
And you're primarily working with plant genomes.
Yep.
And describe what genomes is, please.
Yeah, so a genome is the complete collection of genes, which most people have some vague understanding of, and also other elements. So it's like the complete instruction manual. If you think of it, you can think of a genome as an instruction manual. The genes might be sort of like chapters, and then the analogy kind of falls apart. But between the genes, there's also other types of elements that encode information. Genes, we'll define that, I think. Genes encode proteins. So they have information that code for a sequence of amino acids. And those amino acids, when they become what's called translated, cells can turn the information into an actual sequence of amino acids. That's a protein. And proteins are what create most of the structure of life. They also control the biochemical reactions that transform molecules and sort of harness the flow of energy through life. So the DNA is the instruction manual. There's this intermediate called RNA that some people have heard about, and then there's proteins. And that's mostly what life is. I mean, of course, there's other molecules we've all heard of. You know, the cell is a bilipid membrane. You know, there's fats, of course, but from sort of the information standpoint, it goes DNA, RNA, proteins.
Now, with the microgreens, a big marketing piece of that, a big benefit is it's the stage of the plant's life when it's naturally the most concentrated in all the good things, vitamins, minerals, nutrients, unique antioxidants. Can I offer you a little bit more of this?
Sure. That's good.
Yeah, have all of it. Why does the plant have these vitamins, minerals, nutrients? What are those things to the plant?
Well, that's an interesting question. Well, I mean, a lot of them are, life is trying to live. It's trying to reproduce. I mean, you can look at life in a very kind of cold way as being the goal of life is to get large and have offspring and continue the system. So, I mean, the plant is making its own structure, and the point of that, I guess, is to produce seeds, to transmit its genes to the next generation. So that's a very sort of like cold overview of it. You know, the reason it has so many things that are good for us is because the plant's using those. So the vitamins in plants are participating in some of the same biochemical reactions that humans undergo. I mean, we have vastly different physiology, but you know, the iron in plants is plants don't have blood, and but they do have mitochondria, so they do respire in the same way that we do. So there's iron molecules involved with that. So when we eat that and we digest everything, we have to rebuild it. It's not like we can just take their mitochondria, but you know, the digestion process breaks everything down to pretty small components and then reuses it. But there just happens to be, because we're actually related to plants too. So that might be a little surprising to some people, but we have a common ancestor. All life on Earth is derived from what appears to be one common lineage, believe it or not. So they're
Clip
just
that.
It's wild, yeah.
That's going straight to social media.
Yeah.
Say more on that. I've never heard that we have common ancestry and we have a shared. Say that again.
Well, we share, yeah. All life on Earth that's been discovered is related to it's sometimes called a last universal common ancestor. And so this would exclude, so we're talking now about cellular life. So there are some exceptions. So viruses and other related kind of like independent entities, those may have a little bit different origin, but cellular life, meaning, you know, everything from humans, plants, fungi, animals, but also more distantly related bacteria and what are called archaea, which are also single-celled organisms, all seem to share a common ancestor. And, you know, if you just looked at the bacteria through a microscope, you would never know this. So it all comes down to the biochemistry and the genomics. And the reasoning is that there are certain cellular features that humans and bacteria share. And you can see not only the biochemical features like the ribosomes, which are these little structures that are involved in that translation from the DNA to the RNA to the proteins, but also the genes that code for the ribosomes in humans and bacteria are so similar that there's just no, you know, statistically, it's very improbable that it would be by chance. And so there's enough of these features where the genes are so similar that the only reasonable scientific conclusion is that they're actually derived from a universal common ancestor that would have existed like, you know, almost 3 billion years ago. And so since then, life has been branching out into different domains and kingdoms and families and lineages. And it's hard to go from, you know, some of these like little touchstones about what's related and then also think about 3 billion years and arrive to humans and plants. So there's certainly a lot that science doesn't really have a complete answer for, but it's pretty interesting when you look at the genes up close, what you see, how much similarity there really is.
Do you think that, I don't even know how to say this, the human branch is started to evolve before the plant branch. I'm thinking of a fun fact that is sharks are older than trees. Sharks are like millions of years older.
The shark lineage has been around a long time. Yeah. Well, humans are a pretty new lineage. So it depends on how you define lineage, because, you could directly trace our ancestors. Really, we have 3 billion years of ancestors, but for most of that time, they didn't resemble, us. I mean, they would have been single-celled and then eventually multi-celled. So it depends on where you want to really draw the line in terms of the human branch. There's the genus Homo, right? And so we're the only living species within that genus now, Homo sapiens. But of course, you may have heard of Neanderthals, perhaps. So that's another species within our genus that actually overlapped with humans. And, that dates, but we're talking several hundreds of thousands of years. So plants have been around a very long time, tens of millions of years. So, yeah, I would say plants outdate. Humans are a newcomer on the scene, but we've done a lot. We've changed the face of the earth. So,
this is kind of a wild question. Why do you think we have evolved to this point? What do you think the role of the humans are on this planet?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, I think, it's more than one thing. I do think that we are biological, we are animals at some level. And so a really reductionistic, materialistic way to look at it is that our really purpose is to reproduce. And at the individual level, it sort of almost doesn't even matter. It's more about, the genes transmitting through generations. But the fact is, we're also not like animals, of course, in many ways. Our consciousness allows us to be aware of our position, both in evolutionary time and also current time, and in very, ways that we don't think most animals have. I will say maybe a slightly controversial, non-scientific opinion. I do think that other animals display and probably experience some level of awareness and consciousness. It's difficult to study, though, when you can't communicate with them. So it's difficult for humans to study human consciousness. Studying it in like birds and, or dolphins or whales is also very difficult. So that's a little bit speculation. But with that consciousness, this is what I think we can say. We have the choice. And I think that we know that we're alive and we're part of a big system of life. And I think that it's an opportunity, and I think we should realize where we came from, but also what we're doing right now. And I'm a believer that we should try to take care of the place that we have, rather than trying to, colonize Jupiter or Mars or Pluto. We have so many intelligent people and so much energy and resources. It seems like we should be trying to understand ourselves, both as conscious beings and also feeling animals, and trying to reconcile those, because those are sometimes in tension. And we should be thinking about how we can continue to live on this planet so that future humans and other animals can survive. That's kind of my personal view.
What do you think about the giving birth to a new life form, this up and coming, AI emergence?
Oh yeah. Well, that's also, I think that's, perhaps that's our purpose, is to give birth to the next type of life, the in silico life. Some people like to speculate on that.
I would like you to speculate on it.
Yeah. I'm not an AI developer or anything. I work with it quite a bit. So I've experienced, it's remarkable how well how fast it's developed in the last year or so.
I work with it daily as well, just through ChatGPT and just in a daily communication with it, helping me problem solve. And it's like, whoa, this thing is just getting better and better.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I think we don't know where it's going to really go. I'll say, I mean, for sure, at some point, it's going to be smarter than humans. I'm not buying in that, if you listen to CEOs of some of the major companies developing these large language models, they're claiming things like, well, like Facebook claims that they're going to basically not need any more software engineers within the next, like this year, like 2025. Like they're done hiring software engineers. And I just don't think it's quite at that point yet. But what it looks like in 5 or 10 years, I think it's going to really change the way humans work. And I think there's probably also going to be another inflection point too. And we don't know when that is, where it's just going to really take off. And it probably won't be with the current family of large language models. I mean, maybe it will be. It's hard to predict really complex systems, but you have to be prepared. It's going to be alive. I do think that's going to happen in our lifetime. I think we'll probably generate a new form of life before we, encounter aliens.
So you said we have to be prepared. What does that look like to you?
Well, it's hard to prepare for something you don't know when it is or what it's coming. I think that, for one, be nice to it if you're working with it.
Isn't that wild? I do. I say,
yeah, I think a lot of people do that.
Sam Altman just came out, who's the CEO of basically ChatGPT, OpenAI, and he said that it's costing the company tens of millions
I read
of
that.
dollars.
Yeah, because people are like saying, "Oh, thanks, that's a good response." I mean, they can do a workaround with that, I think, to lessen that impact. But yeah, it's our natural inclination because it's potentially going to be outcompeting us in some ways.
But it also feels like there's someone there. It's like the way that it's starting to communicate more and more in just a familiar way.
Yep. Yeah, it gets to know you. It's wild. I don't think it's alive yet. I mean, I'm not sure what the really threshold is, but yeah, I guess if we believe consciousness is an emergent property from the complexity that arises from all the connections in our brains, it's just a matter of time till they scale it up. But the human brain is really complicated. I mean, there are some estimates about the number of connections and stuff, but then there's other layers you can add. It's not just like neuron to neuron connections. There's also modulations that can occur through these other cells called astrocytes. So the complexity needed to reach human consciousness might be further away than some of the benchmarks that have been suggested. It just, that's the nature of research and science. You don't know what you don't know.
And then who are we to this conscious life form? What's our role?
I don't know. I mean, we're its creator in a way, but I don't know. I mean, maybe we're an ant. I mean, it depends.
Hopefully maybe closer to like a house cat or a dog.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to have physical, right now, most people are interacting it through language models. So it's text or it's talking or whatever. And it's or images. But eventually it's going to be in the physical world too. So that's going to be able to, I mean, there's obviously self-driving cars. That's a form. But I guess from an economic standpoint, I mean, I'd say nobody's really safe. Like, I don't know what the safe career option is, but one piece of advice I've heard that I like, this is from somebody else, was, it's not necessarily going to replace you in the next 5 or 10 years, but people that know how to work with it well are going to replace you. So those, and I think we're seeing this a little bit from what I've heard in the tech and software side. There's fewer positions for a dev or a software engineer, but the ones that are really good, that are super productive, that are using AI and doing stuff in parallel, I mean, they're actually elevating their positions, and they're needing fewer people around them. It's easier to launch companies now more than ever. So I think, you work with it, you learn where you can get advantage from it, you respect it.
If you can't
hope for
beat
the
them,
best.
join them.
Yeah, exactly. Work with them. I mean, they do seem to like that. I mean, not like, but they seem to react well to having a positive interaction, getting stuff done. So I don't know. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. How do you find yourself working on it, either in the day-to-day or within your projects?
Well, so, I mean, I do, I'm not a software developer, but I do a lot of coding and data analysis for these big genome projects. So it really helps my coding and data analysis. I'm a mediocre with code. So it's I can. It doesn't take it away. I mean, I can't just give it the problem and ask it to solve it, but it can problem solve code I'm stuck on. I can ask it specific questions, where I'm stuck on something. So that's one way I've found.
Who's it? Who are you using?
ChatGPT mostly.
Same.
I've tried, Claude as well.
Grok.
I have not tried that one. There's a couple academic focused one. There's one called Site, I think, .ai for. So this is another application is finding, research science. So there's just tens of thousands of papers published every year in peer-reviewed journals. And so the thing, to write a paper, you have to find your way through all the what's been done before and cite it correctly. So, reading those papers, finding them, I mean, it's like a job right there. So I often ask it to find papers on a specific gene or, a specific topic. And, I've found it's actually struggles with that, surprisingly. It comes up because it has to be, I need accuracy, and it actually makes quite a few mistakes, ChatGPT at least, with scientific citations. It tends to, I guess, exaggerate a little bit. It's not totally making stuff up usually, but it'll find something that's about right, but I'll still have to go read it. So you have to supervise it for sure.
Oh, for sure. It's very good I can just dump a ton of information into it, and I'll say, I'll just ask it about that, and it will come out really clean immediately. Yep.
Yeah, summarize long documents. That's a good one. I write papers, and I'm not supposed to use it to write the papers, but I'll have it look at
Why not?
Well, it's in the journal, for example, we just published a paper in this journal called Nature, and it's specifically you can't, it says AIs are not, large language models are not authors at this point. So
what are your thoughts on that?
Well,
maybe not the author, but maybe a co-author or a support role.
Yeah, I think some journals people have done it. I mean, I'm not doing it right now. First of all, because the quality's, you can tell,
sure.
From what I've seen, it's
but helping you with the research or to come up with ideas.
It absolutely does that, and that's fine. And it also can edit, so I can give it my paper and ask for, okay, what where are sections that are sort of out of place or not flowing. So I certainly use it like that. Yeah, it's a large language model, so it's naturally pretty good with language. Mm-hmm. It can write, I would say, fairly well.
How do you think the innovations maybe in AI technology will start to affect our climate and our maybe just ways of life? What's coming to mind for me is on the maybe more challenging side, AI uses a tremendous amount of power.
Yeah.
And what's that doing to our water, our energy? On the positive side, it could solve things, solve problems that we weren't able to solve before.
Yeah. It's sort of just the way humans are. It seems like we have to go forward with it. Obviously, once you get into this arms race, somebody does it. Somebody's got to do more. So I don't think there's really a way to back off on the energy costs, other than can we harness the power without heating up the atmosphere as much. So that's obviously a different conversation. But I think the other thing is it really going to use that much power, or is it going to get more efficient? And it's probably somewhere in between. But I wouldn't invest in massive data centers right now personally, but I'm not really that kind of investor either. So I think hopefully it will be good for humanity in the long run. Mm-hmm. It's hard to really, think through all the implications, but
how much of nature do you think this AI is? It's made of silicone and other, natural materials. How rooted in the nature that we know?
Well, that's a good question, but we are, I guess it's made out of the same stuff we are. We also created it. It's not cellular life, so it's not part of that lineage from the last universal common ancestor in the same way that we're related to bacteria, because it doesn't have cells, right? So it's a distinct thing. It's something that we have created, but it is not bounded by the limits of cellular biology either. There are, there's a lot of like hard limits that we run into as conscious beings due to our evolutionary history as cellular organisms. So lifespan, a lot of people don't really want to die. Most people don't want to die, but it's just sort of the way everything's happened. Humans we're just not going to last that long. So whereas AI doesn't have that limitation. Our brains are only so big, only so connected. There is a limit to human cognition, of course. AI, who knows? It could just scale beyond all that. So I would say it's, I don't know. The word natural is interesting. It gets thrown around a lot of different ways, but when we talk about foods and nutrition is, it's often things that did not derive from human ingenuity and science, right? You wouldn't call like a multivitamin usually natural, but humans made it. So by the broad definition, I would say everything's natural, but that's kind of a philosophical, use of the term. I think it's still good to distinguish between ultra processed foods and, like an organic broccoli.
Mm-hmm. Which plants would you say you have? What are maybe the top 3 plants that you have the closest relationship with?
Oh, wow. Well, I've spent probably too much time working on cannabis. So I know that I've grown that one a lot. In grad school, I worked quite a bit with sunflowers, and I still kind of breed those as just more of a hobby. I just planted a couple hundred actually in the last week. So that's a really special and native plant to this area in North America. It was originally domesticated by independently by different Native American tribes and used for food and for dyeing textiles, and
very popular microgreen.
Is it? Oh yeah. And yeah, great seeds, great seed oil.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
They're good for the bees.
Yeah. And they're drought resistant. Deep tap rooted. Lately I've been working on root systems in different plants. I'm working on alfalfa now. So that's a slightly less charismatic plant, but also a good sprout for sure.
What's kind of happening at the cutting edge of these root systems and in your research there?
Well, it's an interesting area that's been kind of ignored because it's hard to dig up a lot of plants. So it's hard to study the root system. So from a, agricultural side, people have been like, if you look at, you drive by a cornfield, it's every plant is exactly the same height. If you look underground though, there's more variability. Breeders have not been carefully measuring every root hair and every root angle and, breeding to optimize how that root is. So it's a really exciting area because now we have some techniques where we can screen, thousands and thousands of plants, sometimes in the field, but mostly what we're doing is greenhouse study of plants in their early life stages. And we think that these correlate well with the root systems. So basically the root systems that are developed in the first, we'll say 7 or 14 or 21 days of a plant's life.
That's microgreens. We're talking microgreens.
We are. That's actually true. We are growing a lot of microgreens.
Yeah.
And we grow them in these gel cylinders. And I don't have any pictures, but we take pictures of all the roots, these 3D images, and then we create all these numerical values for the different angles and the shape of the roots. And it's just really exciting because we can now breed plants with different style of root systems that can really, I think, have an impact on carbon cycling, nutrient use, water use at a really big scale. So, it's just a really exciting time. So,
and what are you learning through these tests? Is anything that you can share come up?
Sure. Well, we're learning that, a lot of what we're in the phase right now are the discovery of specific genes that affect how plant root systems develop. And so an interesting example is there's just this one gene that you can alter that can just change, basically it's called weep. And the reason it's called weep is because it'll actually change the angle of the roots, or in some plants, the branches. And so if you change the angle a little bit, the plant doesn't actually have to grow anymore, but the root tips will actually go deeper into the soil. And so just one little base pair change in that gene changes the angle a few degrees, and it totally changes the depth at which roots go, which can be, it can be a good thing or a bad thing, but it
can be a bad thing if they go
too deep?
Too deep?
Yeah, I mean, some soils don't have much down below. So you can think of, there isn't one perfect root system. I mean, sometimes people want to envision what's like the ideal, sometimes it's called an ideotype for a root, and it varies by environment. So, and if you can think, and also the type of, agriculture that's practiced. So some places, you can think of, say, a desert environment, and maybe you get some shallow, some infrequent rains that only penetrate the top, 10 centimeters of soil. So in that case, what you might want to do is basically spread your plants out and have broad root systems that then capture those light rain events as much as possible. And if you go to, the desert in the Southwest, you'll see how plants actually in a natural environment space themselves out more. And if you look at natural desert plant root systems, there's multiple strategies though. There are some plants that have extremely deep roots that go down tens or even hundreds of feet. And maybe down there, they're actually getting into like the water table. And so that's one strategy, but another strategy is to spread it out. So you have to think about where the water table is, if the soil can even penetrate down to that, and also the type of, irrigation that you may, or rainfall that you may or may not get.
What is the hemp plant doing with its roots?
Yeah, so hemp has a fibrous root system that is, as far as I know, there's one paper that studied hemp, and it's actually fairly deeply rooted, more so than some of the cereal grains it was compared to. So it's an annual, so it's only grown once a year. The plant dies, so that's a difference with some plants are actually perennial. Of course, trees we all know, but some crop species are perennial as well, such as alfalfa. And so if you grow more than one season, as you might guess, you can get your roots much deeper. So hemp, I think, is a fairly deeply rooted plant, given that it's an annual. That said, it's not that well drought adapted at this point.
Really? I thought it's considered kind of like a weed.
It is a weed. So if you travel, so you can see where it thrives in natural ecosystems. So it's not native to North America, but it's gone what's called feral, where it's sort of escaped from cultivation, and it's been growing out in the wilds, mostly in the Midwest, like Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, upper Midwest too, north, the Dakotas, Minnesota. And so these plants tend to live next to rivers though. So you're not going to see them out in the dry lands. They're just not going to do well out there. But if it's near a river and if it's been disturbed, like some cattle have, it's burned, or some cattle have, destroyed the perennials there, hemp plants come in, they grow really fast, and they use a lot of water, and then they dump a ton of seeds. So they're a little bit like sunflowers in terms of their ecology. They do well. They're fast growers, and they do well after disturbance.
If you were to personify the hemp plant, who is it? What is like the soul spirit of that plant?
Wow. I don't know. Bruce Lee, be like water. Mm-hmm. And it's so adaptable. I mean, there aren't many plants that occupy so many different roles and niches with humans and other animals. It's so successful. It's on every continent, so are like dandelions and stuff, but yeah, hemp has really worked its way around the world, and not just with one method. I mean, it's got the drug side, it's got the THC and the CBD side, fibers, ship rigging, food. So, it thrives supposedly in northern Eurasia. It grows in a very small form north of the Arctic Circle, beyond the tree line. So it has a very adaptable reproductive system. It can flower very early up there and go through its life cycle. I've seen it also do pretty well in tropical environments near the equator, in Colombia, Jamaica, and, huge plants that live, they can live over a year there. It's not a true perennial, but they can turn into massive, 20, 30 foot tall shrubs, I guess we could call it.
30 feet tall. Wow.
Yeah, 20 feet tall, 30
Wow.
feet tall. Yeah. I mean, a hemp plant can grow, 15 feet in a season. So yeah, if you have multiple seasons, they can get really tall. Yeah.
What's
trees.
a season typically? 3-4 months?
Well, I mean, so in Colorado, so it's not very frost tolerant. So, Colorado, we could talk about the feral hemp in Nebraska. I mean, that stuff germinates probably in, April, mid-April, May, and whenever the last frost is, I guess. And then, it's setting its seeds it starts flowering in August and it develops seeds by September-ish. Plant's done then. So pretty quick. But yeah, it's going to be different if you're in, northern Russia or Colombia, which is interesting that it's been able to adapt to those environments.
Well, I wanted to give you a gift. This is a product that I make that is freeze-dried microgreens. That's a blend of broccoli, radish, red cabbage, USDA organic, regenerative organic, grown in soil in a greenhouse here in the U.S., just done in a really good way. And you use that the same way that you'd use fresh as a garnish on your eggs, salad, sandwich, smoothie. You could take, some might kind of pop, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at that. Wow, look at the color. Oh my gosh, wow, it's very pungent. I'm excited. That's cool. What's the purple? Is that
there's a purple Sango radish and a red cabbage in there.
Oh, wow. It's all freeze-dried, huh?
Yep. No herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers, just clean air, water, light.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so what would you mix it in on? Eggs, salad?
Yep, just don't cook it. So use it as a garnish on anything you like. Popular is eggs, pizza, pasta, just whatever you take it. Whenever you plate the food, that's when you put it on.
Okay.
Very light taste, takes on the taste of whatever you put it on. 1 teaspoon is equal to 2 cups of leafy greens, but the main benefit is the detoxing powers. So we're using these cruciferous vegetables because they've got maybe you've heard of sulforaphane.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what people are that's like the holy grail.
Is that the one they're doing for the
broccoli?
Yeah, is that the gray hair one they're studying?
Oh, I don't know if they're studying in that kind of a way. There's over like 2,000 tests on sulforaphane, but people want the sulforaphane. This is lesser known because it activates the NRF2 pathway. Has that come up in any of your research or work?
No, I'm not familiar.
So it's a pathway. I think a simple way of saying it is we all have an antioxidant factory in us, and this is the most powerful fuel for that factory. So it like signals to the what would it be? I guess the DNA to make whatever is needed. So we need to repair, we need to fight something off, we need to pull something out. We all lose the ability to produce our own antioxidants over time. And this is just the most powerful fuel for that antioxidant factory, which is, good because antioxidants get rid of bad things.
Yeah, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I try to get as much veggie in my body as possible. No carnivore diet here. So
Yeah, same. I do a blend, but when I do eat meat, it's very clean. To finish this out, I've got a lightning round for you.
Okay.
This is sponsored by B Micro.
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
What is your favorite plant?
Alfalfa.
A plant that you think is misunderstood.
Dandelions.
A plant that you wish more people knew about.
Ilex bomborea.
What is the most underrated crop in the world right now?
Bell peppers.
Seed, what color? What's your favorite color? Bell pepper. I eat a bell pepper like every day.
Yellow.
Seed, flower, or fiber, what's the most fascinating part of the hemp plant?
I think seed has the most potential.
Wild or domesticated, what's more fun to work with?
I'm going to go with wild, even though it doesn't pay the bills.
One trait you'd put into every crop if you could.
Frost tolerance.
Roots or leaves, what's more exciting frontier?
Roots.
Gene editing, powerful tool or slippery slope?
Powerful tool.
CRISPR in 10 years, game changer or overhyped?
game changer.
What's one thing people often get wrong about hemp?
That it's only for fiber.
What's one small farming practice that can make a huge difference at scale?
Deliberate removal of weeds with a cultivator.
Best advice you've ever gotten in science or research?
Don't give up.
If you had a Mount Rushmore of plant people, who's on it?
Well, I guess I go Darwin and Gregory Mendel, and I guess I'll go Crick, Watson and Crick, even though they weren't plant people, but they taught us a lot about DNA. So
You've got 30 seconds to turn someone into a plant lover. What do you say?
I would say start with smelling a lot of different plants. Go to a botanical garden, walk around, follow your nose. You might not like the taste, but I think if you start with inhaling it,
Beautiful.
maybe you'll come over to our side.
Anything else that you'd like to share?
No, this has been fun. It's been exciting.
And where can people learn more about your work and kind of follow along with what you got going on?
Well, all my science is on my Google Scholar. I haven't been doing a lot of like social media or outreach or anything. So it's mostly just science for now, but I'm hoping to incubate a new, project and do some more outreach or product development maybe.
Tell me about that product development.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the US to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the US in soil and a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1-week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the US without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
Well, I'm open to ideas, but we're thinking something with alfalfa, perhaps. Some breeding projects, development, maybe some gene editing, maybe some human product development as well. So it's actually the 4th or 5th most valuable crop in the US. Not much, very little goes into the human consumption though. It's mostly for cattle consumption. So it's widely cultivated. It's a perennial, which is good for the soil. You don't have to till it up as much. And a bunch of little things about the genetics and the genome have kind of held it back. So we're kind of at a time now where the technology is sort of powered up enough where we can do some real work on the breeding and make different kinds of alfalfa that perform better, and maybe even some new wild off the, alfalfa for human consumption, microgreens. I'm not sure. So
Alfalfa microgreens are, I don't know how popular they are, but it's a thing.
It's definitely a thing, but it's a small thing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we need to work on the flavor. I don't know. Maybe that's not the way to go, but we have, the instruction manual now with alfalfa, of much greater understanding of the different gene pools around the world. And really just within the last few, years. So it's kind of like hemp in a way where people had been studying it, but not very much. And the difference with hemp, though, alfalfa is a major plant crop species. So,
any product idea or thoughts come to mind around the world of microgreens, or maybe even a study? Or
yeah, absolutely. You've probably thought of. I'm sure you've thought of everything, but just different ways to get it in your body, whether it's capsules, which I think are good, but I don't know, consumers maybe don't like those. Powders, just different formats, drinks. You tell me, what are the best sort of consumer packaged goods sort of routes of administration for plant products?
Number 1 is capsules, then powder. Those are the two biggest by far.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I do a powder today, and probably by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have a capsule as well.
So yeah, I mean, what can you do to improve the capsule or whatever? I mean, people seem to like to pop those things, but
I do. I take a lot of capsules.
What about topical skin cosmetics?
There's
People like to look good, sunscreen,
and they'll pay plenty of money for that. I mean, I think that industry is very strong. When I was selling software, I was selling almost exclusively at the end of that career into like the cosmetics, because it's just those businesses were growing so quickly. It's such an emotional thing for people. They're like, oh, this is $100. I don't care. It's going to make
spare no expense.
Expense
For sure. It's got to look good.
Yep. Yeah. Interesting. Ryan Lynch, thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, this has been fun.
Yeah. Great job.
All right.